Hello, beautiful teachers. Today we're talking about the book Miniatures by Juan Cabeza. This is a gorgeous book with 24 little miniature pieces in all the keys. You might have guessed it from the number, and it's a fabulous book to incorporate into your students' repertoire. What I love about this book is the variety of the pieces. The nature of having all 24 keys is wonderful, and they're in parallel major and minor on each page. But what I love the most is that they are miniature, actually. Each piece is only 2 lines. So this is a great opportunity to bring more different types of reading material, more different types of pieces, different sounds to your student in a way that doesn't take them away from maybe their bigger projects or doesn't take too long to get through each piece. I'm going to play you a pair of pieces. These are actually the first 2 pieces in the book, so they're in C major and C minor. So you can see those are great little pieces, and there's a huge diverse nature throughout the book. So there's lots of different styles of music. Really keeps it interesting for the student. None of them are really in like a pop or a jazz style, but they have interesting details. They're sort of classical-ish, most of them in nature, but in a really fresh, modern way. This book also includes in the back of it, in fact, a substantial part of the book is these activity cards, as they're called. And these include pictures of the pentascales, which are also included above each piece, but they have cards with them separate, and then the keys and different things. So you can play games like memory, simple games. We know I love a game. But you can also use those, I think, as some great starting off points for transposing these pieces and maybe some improvisation. So that's what I would love to do with them, is put all of the keys, for example, or all the pentascales in a bag and have your student pick one out and then play one of the pieces they've studied so far from this book in that key. And the challenge to transpose these pieces to different keys will help them see the keys in new ways. And if you want to use the pentascales for this, they'll have that visual of what the key looks like on the piano to help them along a bit. But if you want to use maybe the key names for students who know their keys a bit better, I think that's a great option too. In my studio, this book fits into 2 key roles. So number 1 is a student, especially a very ambitious student, but sort of a rising intermediate student who really likes big projects, who likes to do pieces that are really pushing their skills, big things. The more pages, the better. I'm sure you have some students like that. I know they're not that common, but some students are like this, where they just want to do big things and they don't want to do small things. If something looks easy to them or more accessible, they actually see that as a negative. So this book is a good compromise to keep in your students' ongoing projects, because they're short pieces, right? So your student can get through them even without a huge amount of practice effort on that piece, and they can keep their reading skills and their technique sharp without having to do lots of shorter pieces that are slightly longer than these, right? So it's a good thing to mix in with a student who say they really just get hyper-focused on their exam pieces or their festival pieces. And while that's great and they make great progress there, their reading skills can kind of suffer and fall back a little bit because they're not playing enough different things. So I think this book is great for that type of student. The other type of student I've used this for is actually one who's returning to piano. So I've had teenagers who are returning to piano. They did it a bit when they were younger and they're maybe quite bright students. So we don't want to give them, they don't really need to return to a full-on method book, or they don't need that exclusively. These pieces are described as intermediate, but I think because they're short, they can be quite accessible to a student who is a little bit below that level officially, right? Whatever that means, but actually will put in the effort to make these things work, and they can do it over 2 lines. I think for a younger student that would be quite challenging technically, but for a teenager or young adult, I think that can be quite accessible. And the pieces sound sophisticated, so I think they go over very well with teens and adults who don't want to play anything babyish when they're coming back to piano. If you've ever used or still use dozen a day, especially at the intermediate level, and want something to swap it out with, that would be another place where you could insert this book easily into your studio. I'm not saying these pieces sound anything like dozen a day, no offense to Juan meant there. I'm just saying that they would fill the same role as in that they're easily transposable, you can use them to work on keys and technical skills, but they're a bit more fresh and up to date. So you can find this book at Piano Safari's website, so pianosafari.com. That's where Juan Cabeza's work is published for the most part, and I hope you'll check it out over there. And if you're looking for more books to bring fresh life into your studio, you should watch this video next.